Hey there, everyone. This is Samuel Johnson,
And I'm Haley Dudley.
and welcome back to the MTV Spider-Man Retrospectives. And today we're going to be discussing episode 7 of Spider-Man, the new animated series, Head Over Heels. And apologies in advance to you and the audience. I threw my voice out at the beginning of the week, so while I'm mostly better, I might not sound as great as I have in previous vlogs. So apologies, but whatever. Anyway, what did you think of the episode?
I thoroughly enjoyed it. I feel like the characters were just interesting to watch. Just a lot of crazy though.
Yes, definitely crazy. And in this case, in this episode, we are introduced to, I'm just going to say our villain for the episode, Christina. She is an obsessed Spider fan girl. She has a little shrine in her room. She's got a little photo album. She's convinced that they're soulmates, and she's Peter's lab partner in this episode. They're supposed to be doing an experiment on the mind, and I think.
They were given an open-ended experiment question for what they were supposed to do for class, and she wanted to show him her device or gadget that she had built, which was this ESP crown that was supposed to make it that the two people would be linked and be able to read the person wearing the crown would be able to read the other person's mind.
Yeah, it was essentially, I want to say a basin, like a
It was a colander with fuses attached and a toaster with circuit boards in it.
all of them connected by wires, and essentially, if you wore the crown, you're supposed to be able to read the mind of whoever had these little probes or whatever. What were they again?
I
forgot the word.
She called them electrodes.
Electrodes, yeah, that's what it is. As such, she attempted to test the thing out on Peter and be able to read his mind. But the thing is, in order to use this thing, you have to plug it in, and she had a lot of stuff plugged into her outlet, and unfortunately, and she wanted to listen to music, and she pumped the volume up, so it caused an electrical surge. Peter was able to get the electrodes off before they shocked him, but unfortunately, Christina was not as lucky. It caused the crown to go nuts and fry her brain. Peter was able to unplug it, so it wasn't able to kill her, but it did cause a nosebleed. And the thing is, after it shocked her, she began hearing a voice saying, "Christina, where are you?"
I mean, even as you're seeing like it flash and everything of her being electrocuted, it shows her sitting there in perfect stillness with blue glowing nights. Christina, Christina, where are you? In this odd, haunting voice, and yeah.
As a result, she ends up ushering Peter out of her room, and the voice keeps saying, "Christina, where are you? Come on, I've been calling you." And as she looks for the source of the voice, she happens to find her little album of Spider-Man articles. And when she opens up the first page, the picture of Spider-Man looks to her and says, "Now then, are you ready to do everything I say?" Yeah. So yeah, she went nuts. And essentially, with the hallucination hastening her on, she now wants to find the real Spider-Man and essentially become a real life couple. Of course, there are still some hurdles to jump through because, for starters, Peter is still having his own relationship problems, a lot less than he should have, but we'll get to that later. As MJ wants to get closer to try and overcome the hurdles, she thinks that what they need to do is do a little game where they reveal secrets to each other. And so Peter is having trouble trying to figure out what to reveal to MJ that's not too personal, but not too
impersonal.
Yeah.
Which then ultimately cultivates in him just
She confesses to him that she would hide in her closet whenever her parents were fighting and pretend to be a stowaway on a ship, and he confesses to her that he's allergic to Gruber the fish.
Yeah. Not
exactly. Not his proudest moment.
No.
Thing is, though, while Peter is still trying to find something revealed to her, Christina's first plan of action is to get Spider-Man by the usual method that superheroes meet people, putting herself in mortal danger. She tries jumping off a building, and thankfully Peter was in New York when she did this, so his spider sense alerted her to what happened to her. His spider sense alerted him to what she did, and so he was able to go in and save her. But of course, she was freaking out, saying, "Come on, it's like, of course, the fact that you saved me, that means we're soulmates. That means we're together." And Peter's like, "No, we're not. Stay away from me, and don't do something that'll put yourself or others in danger again." And he just swings off. And as a result, she's trying to think of other solutions, and the hallucination is no help at this point because due to her mental state. Since the real Spider-Man is mad at her, now the hallucination is saying, "Don't ever do that again. I don't have time to be swinging around saving helpless girls."
Mm-hmm.
And so she thinks, maybe I could try finding Spider-Man through Peter. And as such, she ends up asking a man named Wong, who runs the coffee shop called the Drip Den, for to find, and he directs her towards Harry. And her response is to tracking down Harry is to eavesdrop on a conversation between him and MJ after the whole Gruber thing.
Mm-hmm.
As Harry and MJ are talking, she talks about the conversation shifts to her being attracted to Spider-Man, and Harry just says, "So see, I gotta help Peter out now, or otherwise you're gonna go back into that dirtbag Spider-Man." Christina hears this, and she just loses it. She goes back to her room, starts yelling at her little shrine, and says, "MJ, you love MJ," and the hallucination's like,
I don't know, maybe.
the heart wants what it wants.
Mm-hmm.
And so she keeps saying the heart can change. With enough effort, I can make it change. And so the hallucinations say, so if you really want to be with Spider-Man, you need to remove the obstacle that's in your way.
Mm-hmm.
Which pretty much translates to
Kill MJ.
Yep. As such, she kidnaps MJ with this. It was an
acid gun.
It was something she showcased earlier in the episode. It was supposed to be like a super glue gun, but it instead spits acid.
Mm-hmm.
And so she kidnaps MJ and brings her to essentially a I want to say a wedding reception, but they got it set up for a wedding, but there's no one there.
It was like a hotel, and then it was like the balcony on top of a hotel.
Yeah, essentially it's set up for a wedding that's gonna happen.
Mm-hmm.
And so she holds her there and wants to use her as a bargaining tool to get Spider-Man to come there. And as such, Peter's spider sense alerts him that Mary Jane is in danger. So he comes in, and Christina has the machine there again, and she wants to use it to prove once and for all that Spider-Man really cares about her and that they're soulmates. But when Spidey shows up, he just tells her, "Your machine sucks and it doesn't work. Stop this." And so she decides, "No, I'm going to prove it." However, MJ points out the possibility that if she tried using this on Spider-Man, she might just project her own feelings onto him. So there's that, asking him, "Who do you care about?" is unreliable. So she says, "Okay, I'll try something else." And so of course, Spidey puts the electrodes to his head, and she asks, "Who are you under that mask?" And when she gets what she thinks is the answer, she talks about, "Wow, I didn't know you were so ordinary and not exciting." No,
Mm-hmm.
and in this distraction, it allows MJ to punch her out. Though she takes her acid gun and ends up shooting a rail, which Spider-Man has to go catch before it crashes on people. And as a result, Christina grabs MJ and they run to an elevator. And in the getaway, Christina keeps using the acid gun to cause other elevators to come loose from their wiring and fall. But eventually, Spider-Man's able to stop them all. He's able to save MJ, and he almost saves Christina. But in her obsession to try and shoot MJ with the acid gun, she ends up burning through the web line Peter used to hold their elevator in place, and it crashes down to the ground. As a result, the police, the paramedics, they're called. She's put in a neck brace, and she reveals that the person she thinks is Spider-Man is Wong, the Drip Den guy.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, Spider-Man says, "No, that's not me, but I'm not going to tell you who I am." He swings away and leaves MJ there for the paramedics. And the next day, she actually checks Wong's wrist to try and prove that he's not Spider-Man. And she and Peter talk, and she realizes that maybe the game she gave Peter was a little too intrusive, especially when compared to a psycho stalker like Christina.
Mm-hmm.
And she then says, and Peter even says, look, I do care about you, but there are some things I do want to keep secret, not just from you, but from everybody. One day we'll get there, but for now, maybe we could just stay friends," which honestly, you kind of do expect to happen. Because, like I said, things have been all over the place in their relationship in the show. And, while things weren't bad, it did hit a wall in the last episode, so. But otherwise, yeah, I liked the episode.
Yeah, no, same. I really appreciate how they portrayed Christina's hallucination of Spider-Man, because it starts off in the beginning like, "Yeah, no, I'm totally your soulmate. You just have to work for me, convince me that I love you, find me and show me." And then as soon as she meets him and then Spider-Man is upset with her, it immediately changes the tone of the other Spider-Man, of like almost like writing her off and dismissive of Christina, like, ugh. I don't have time for you and time for any of this and stuff. And I appreciate that, especially when you get to the end where she's like finding out this new information. The hallucinations literally just like, I don't know, maybe, could be, possibly, absolutely no help. And it almost feels like he's just there to make Christina go off the rails.
That is essentially what the thing is, because
mm-hmm.
they do showcase that what happened did fry her brain in more ways than just causing her to hallucinate, because she starts having like verbal tics.
Mm-hmm.
Her eyes start like
random nosebleeds.
Yeah,
mm-hmm.
like the more extreme she gets, the worse her physical condition is,
Mm-hmm.
and the hallucination is just there to goad her on. In the beginning, it was just it pretty much just said, "You want to find me? You got to get into a situation to meet me." Spider-Man blows her off, and so that makes her more desperate to try and find
mm-hmm.
anything on him. And so, since like you said, the hallucination was blowing her off as well,
Mm-hmm.
it caused her to start stalking people. And then when she learned of the possibility that Spider-Man was interested in someone else, the hallucination never gave her an outright answer, but it did goad her into thinking, well, if you think
mm-hmm.
that there's someone else I'm attracted to, maybe you just need to get them out of the
mm-hmm.
way.
I mean, it almost seemed like the more obsessed she was with Spider-Man, the more dismissive her hallucination of Spider-Man was to all of her like actual problems. Just like, oh yeah,
Which, yeah, I think makes sense, because it kind of would fuel her obsession for
mm-hmm.
the real thing. Because if it was becoming, because in a healthy relationship, you have two people who obviously care about each other and want to be there for each other and would actually listen and
Mm-hmm.
hear out the other people's problems. But the Spider-Man hallucination was kind of like a bad boyfriend,
right?
like it was feeding the darker parts of her and making it more reliant on the idea of Spider-Man, of her needing Spider-Man.
Right.
And
right.
so the further it goaded her on, the worse she got, to the point where she felt that the only thing that could make everything complete was to be with Spider-Man.
Mm-hmm.
And of course the real Spider-Man did have to try and give her hard reality, because she obviously lost it.
Yeah.
But at the same time, he wasn't like, I don't think he was unsympathetic. He did try to talk her down, but she was too far gone at that point.
Yeah, I mean, I appreciate how most of it was handled, like as far as dealing with Christina and everything, with how Spider-Man approached it, because it's very clear that she is not on the same plane of reality as the rest of us. And the fact that he was like, okay, let's not overreact without, actually beating her up, until like it came to a point where violence was absolutely necessary. And even then, it was more about eliminating the threat, so getting her away from her gun and getting MJ away from her, than it was about actually like rising to the bait and everything.
Actually, Spider-Man didn't even throw a punch at her.
Well, no, I mean he
No.
shot a web at her when she had the because right after MJ punched her, she aimed the acid gun at her, and so then he shot a web at her, which then caused it to hit the rail. But that was as close to actually fighting Christina, who is a completely human, obviously having issues.
Yeah, she's not a supervillain.
Right.
She's just a girl with
mm-hmm.
with skewed mental faculties.
Mm-hmm.
And as a result, Spider-Man does have to kind of rein it in,
mm-hmm.
and he's not uncaring, but at the same time, this girl is nuts. She has a weapon that will burn your face off,
mm-hmm.
and she's obsessed with him and willing to kill anyone she deems a threat.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
Plenty of drama, definite appropriate use of force though, and I appreciate that.
Yeah, I do actually like that. On top of that, I do kind of like. I'm trying to think what else I liked about the episode, not just Christina.
I did not appreciate though how, because I was not here for last week, but
I told you about it though.
Understanding that MJ just saw Peter kiss someone else, and she's just like, yeah, let's play fun, get to know us better games, and just like completely ignoring any of that stuff.
Yeah, that was actually a little bit of a problem. Like the Christina stuff, I think was handled well in the episode, and that was like a majority episode, so I think that worked out well, especially seeing Spider-Man have to try and deal with her. But the other half of the episode that I think was mixed was the stuff with MJ, because like you said, in the last week's episode, she saw Peter kissing Indy, which, by the way, we do see Indy again, and they do showcase that Peter and Indy do still have a kind of relationship. He's now supplying he's not like he's supplying news footage of Spider-Man, which he gives to her, and she gives it to her bosses, and so
your girlfriend catches you kissing someone, and so then you continue to work with the person that you kissed.
yeah, that's kind of a odd thing.
Yeah.
I think you can make the argument that maybe they talked about it between episodes or like off screen because
I still feel like it should be addressed though.
agreed. I do feel like that should still be a factor.
Mm-hmm.
Now, to be fair, you can make the argument that maybe some of MJ's actions in this episode were her trying to make amends and keep everything together, but at the same time, she caught Peter kissing another girl.
She skipped straight from anger to acceptance and healing, and it was...
Yeah, I feel like we should have seen some of the fallout from that, like seeing Peter actually try to explain it to her. And while I could see her being understanding because it was a stressful situation, and this is a girl that he met who he has a positive relationship with, at the same time, they kissed.
Yeah.
I feel like there would still be some tension there, and instead the episode kind of brushes over that, and we're already at the point where they're back to talking to each other. So I feel like there should have been some fallout there, even if Peter and Indy's relationship didn't go to romantic levels after that kiss, because they actually talk and they socialize in the episode when they're on screen together. And what I love is that and when Indy talks about talks about how the footage that Peter's supplying her will get her a reporter job like she always wanted. He says, "Man, I forgot what he says, but he says, oh, you got a heart in there, lose it." I do like that. I do kind of like that. But again, what makes me say it's mixed because I don't like that they skipped over that because that should have been a big thing. I do like that the stuff with Christina does bring perspective to her. I'm just gonna say it, dumb little game.
Yeah, I mean, I honestly, the vibe I get from, like the vibe I got from the whole show was slightly dismissive to the real life problems, but at the same time, like it, watching the levels of the different people who are interested in Peter slash Spider-Man. You have Christina, the crazy love interest, Mary Jane, the girl next door, and then Indy, the quirky, eccentric one. Like it's a broad spectrum, and you like at the same time, it doesn't really seem like he is, aside from full on rejecting Christina, it doesn't really seem like he is in any way treating Christina, um, Indy and MJ any different from each other. Like I would have a hard if I did not know anything about the series, I would have a hard time picking which one of those two he was dating.
That's yeah. Peter is that is a kind of a thing, unfortunately.
Mm-hmm.
Now, admittedly, at the end of the episode, Peter and MJ do just decide to downgrade back to friends, which I think is a natural conclusion, honestly, because they have history. They obviously still care about each other, and if we work under the assumption that Peter did explain things between episodes, then you could make the argument that she probably did try to calm down enough. But again, same time, wall.
Trust is broken.
Yeah, there was already a wall there. That was probably a clincher. And even if what we saw here was MJ just trying to pick up the pieces, if they want a relationship, they have to start over.
Mm-hmm.
So even if they're still going to be friends,
Yeah,
there's going to be a kind of an issue there.
yeah. I just feel like their relationship, even just if they decided still to be friends, their relationship would have progressed more naturally and seemed less like awkward if they would have addressed the fact that she saw them the two kissing and actually talked about that, even if it was just in passing of, yes, we've already had this conversation, we've resolved it, it's fine, and then moved on. Like I
Yeah.
feel like it would have just kind of flowed a little bit better, but
Yeah.
that's really my only complaint about it.
Yeah. I think another thing I liked is that it was Christina's progression to the crazy person. Like, because we saw that just gradually, little by little. Like, she was already obsessed before her
fluid.
Yeah, like like just like it was actually very fluid. You actually saw the natural progression of her deteriorating mental state.
Mm-hmm.
So just kind of, and it was done actually rather well and flowed rather well. Everything went into like every stage went into the other naturally. And the more the more crazy she got, the more you saw her get twitchy and spastic. So I'll give you that. I like that too.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, though, I can't think of anything else. Can you think of anything else?
No, overall solid episode, very interesting to watch, very entertaining. I appreciated the villain, for lack of a better word.
Well, we are almost done anyway, so.
Yeah. The villain, for lack of a better, sorry, pizza timer. The villain was great. The response to the antagonist was great. Like, I appreciate it. It was a good show.
Yeah. Pretty much the same. I liked Christina. She was the appropriate amount of crazy, and yeah, she was appropriate amount of crazy, which yeah, Tara Strong can do crazy too. She does like she was she was entertaining, and yet you still felt sorry for her, but at the same time you kind of did want to avoid her. I liked how they showcased her gradually getting just losing it. I liked seeing how far she went. I liked seeing the conclusion, and like you said, it was handled naturally. Peter did respond to her the way any other person would, while also trying to be kind. It was all really nice. I liked that. The only flaw that I could think of is the MJ stuff, because I feel like there should have been fallout from this. And before anyone points out, the episodes on MTV were aired out of order. This episode was aired on the same night as last week's episode, and immediately after. I think any viewers would be like, "Why isn't there fallout there?"
Yeah.
So I'm gonna still knock it for that. But at the same time, I do like how it ended there, because considering what happened in the last episode, I think that that's a natural conclusion. So yeah, otherwise, you both liked it. So yeah, that's about it. Thank you for watching. I'm Samuel Johnson.
And I'm Haley Dudley.
And something I forgot to mention, in this episode, we were introduced to a new character, a minor one in the grand scheme of the episode, but a rather important one for the next week's episode. Because next time we meet, we're going to be introduced to another traditional Spider-Man villain, and this one is honestly one of my favorites.
Who's your favorite?
Don't you know? It's Electro.